Nessos is a bluffing card game for 3 to 6 players from Iello Games. Based in Greek mythology, Nessos has players take on the role of Greek heroes capturing mythical creatures in Amphora to offer to the gods. But watch out, Charon is waiting patiently for those who are unworthy. Who will be the god's chosen one, and who will descend into hell to meet Charon? Let's find out in Nessos. At the start of the game, remove the number of cards as required by the number of players. If you are playing a 3-player game, you will remove the Amphora cards numbered 4, 6, and 8 and take out 4 Charon cards. If you are playing a 4-player game, you will remove the Amphora cards numbered 6 and take out 1 Charon card. Finally, in a 5 or 6-player game, you will play with all Amphora cards and all Charon cards. Shuffle the remaining cards together and deal 5 cards to each player. Put the remaining stack of cards in the middle of the playing area within reach of all players. Each Amphora card has a point value assigned to it at the top of the card. If you are able to collect a set of 1, 2, and 3, it is worth an extra 10 points on top of the face value of 6. The first player is decided at random, and the first player marker is set in front of them, and the round begins. The first player chooses a card from their hand and lays it face down in front of a player of their choice and announces the number on the card. If the player has chosen to lay down an Amphora card, they may not lie about the number. However, if the player has chosen to lay down a Charon card, they can say whatever number they want. If you are playing in a 3 or 4-player game, it is good to keep in mind which cards have been removed from the game. Once the player has laid down the card and announced the number, the player receiving the card has one of 3 options: accept the card, refuse the card, or play a card to a new player. If a player receives 3 Charon cards, they are eliminated from the game. If you decide to accept the card, flip it over face up to reveal either Amphora or Charon card. That ends the round. If you decide to refuse the card, the player who offered it to you must accept the card and reveal it to the rest of the players. That card is kept in front of them as part of their face-up cards. This ends the round. If you decide to play a card to a new player, pick a card from your hand and lay it down with the other face-down card in front of the new player. This card cannot be played to the person who offered it to you previously. The new player then has the same 3 options. If they choose to accept, both cards are revealed and kept in front of them, thus ending the round. If they refuse the cards, the player that played the last card must accept them by revealing the cards and keeping them in front of them, ending the round. If they decide to add a card, they select a card from their hand and place all 3 cards face down in front of a new player. If they decide to do this, the next player can only choose to accept or refuse the cards. Once the round has ended, check to see if any end game conditions have been met. The game ends one of 3 ways: if the sum of a player's cards meets or exceeds the victory conditions, all but 1 player have been eliminated, or there are 9 Charon cards on the table. If no in-game conditions have been met, the first player marker gets passed to the left, and all players draw back up to 5. Continue playing until an in-game condition has been met. Your goal is to collect enough Amphora cards to reach the victory condition or outlast the other players. The victory conditions vary depending on the number of players in the game. In a 3 or 4-player game, players must reach 40 points. In a 5-player game, players must reach 35 points. In a 6-player game, players must reach 30 points. Don't forget the set bonus that I mentioned earlier. If a player has reached the victory conditions, that player is chosen by the gods and wins the game. If all but 1 player have been eliminated, the last player standing wins. If there are 9 Charon cards on the table, the player with the highest number of points wins the game. In the case of a tie, the player with the most Amphora cards wins. If there is still a tie, the players share the victory. And that's Nessos.